Hello, welcome to my story, my song talk show. Today is another day the Lord has blessed us. We must rejoice and be glad in it. Few weeks ago, we heard about the loss of Osinachi Wanchuku from Nigeria, who suffered from domestic abuse. Today, we are going to discuss about domestic abuse. Who suffered most in domestic abuse, women or men? And what are the causes of domestic abuse? Also, what do we do to prevent domestic abuse? So I have with me beautiful ladies. We are going to discuss about domestic abuse, what we should do to prevent this abuse. Elsie?
Well, hi everyone. My name is Elsie, and my profession is in mental health, and I'm very passionate about empowering people to discover who they are.
Hello, I'm Linda, I'm just really riled at the way women are still suffering domestic abuse, even in this 2022. So, just needs to be discussed.
Needs to be discussed. Yeah. Linda, when we talk about domestic abuse, everyone is saying what they know about domestic abuse. So if we say domestic abuse in marriages, how do you define this domestic abuse? And who suffered most, men and women, who suffer most?
Well, if we're going to talk about, thanks for the question, if we're going to talk about who suffers in domestic abuse, everyone in the home, the husband, the wife, the children, everyone suffers in domestic abuse. Domestic abuse is not just the hitting, there is verbal, is the way a partner speaks to the other part, if we're talking here, let's say the woman is the one being abused here. The way the man speaks to her, degrades her, just to take away any self-worth that woman may feel. The man will use it as a form of oppressing the woman or suppressing her.
Yeah.
Especially if that woman has something to give.
Like what?
And I'm not just talking financially, because women are, because here we're Christian.
Yeah.
Women have been given a power that's been given by the one who made them in the first place, who is God. And it comes once you're born with it.
Yeah.
Some men, unfortunately, come from a place that they may not even understand that they're broken. And they come from this place, and all they know is they're insecure in themselves. So all they know is, I have to not be overshadowed by this woman, forgetting that when you're in a marriage, as God has set it out in the first place, you're supposed to be working together as one unit.
Yeah.
Two sides to one coin. That's how I see marriage. Two sides. You can't split them.
Okay.
So if one side thinks there's a need to dominate the other, then abuse comes in. And abuse is not necessarily, as I said, it's not only physical, the
abuse,
hitting, the slapping, the kicking, whatever.
Yeah.
It's not only speaking in a derogatory manner, in a horrible manner to speak. It can be indifference, as in a man can go about his business, not paying any particular attention. They're not beating them, they're not speaking harsh words. They're just
emotionally.
They're sharing a house, but they're two separate people. For a woman, we need to be loved, we need to be cherished. That's what women, that is, as a lot of saying, that's an entitlement of women. So we crave attention from our man.
Okay.
We crave attention, and when I'm talking about attention, I'm not necessarily talking about sex.
Yeah.
We just need to be cherished.
Yeah.
So, for instance, when a man is indifferent, as in going about their business, two people, just like strangers in a home, it breaks a marriage.
Okay.
It is a form of abuse.
Okay.
So women might say, oh, but he doesn't hit me, but he doesn't care for you anyway. He doesn't care for you, so that is abuse.
Okay.
Because he's meant to care for you, he's meant to love you, he's meant to cherish you, he's meant to provide for you, he's meant to protect you. That is his job.
Okay.
That's his
Elsie,
job.
what's your take on this?
Absolutely. The indifference is psychological torture. When someone is supposed to show you affection or protect you and lead you, basically, but they're not doing absolutely nothing. And in this kind of situation, you see women who are doing absolutely everything that they can to be the helper that God has called them to be in their home, and then they're being treated with contempt and indifference, of course that is going to then have an impact on their well-being. It's definitely going to have an impact in their confidence and self-esteem and their self-worth that you mentioned, because the focus is no longer going to be on the action or inactiveness of the man. It's now going to become you end up asking yourself questions like, what is it about
What's wrong with
me?
me? Yes. What's
Start
wrong with
asking
me?
so
What
many
am I-
questions.
Yeah.
what am I doing wrong? And this is the easiest way that we fall prey to this manipulation. And that's where the control comes in, isn't it? And then what you then see is when your confidence has been crushed and the focus, the vision of who you are, how you see yourself has been tainted, it's a lot easier for that person to then have control over you.
So when you talk about control, do you think men controls more than women in marriage, and why is it so? Like, men have more power in the marriage than women. So why is it that some men control the women?
I won't really say it's power, but
It's not power, because just following on from what was said, now you've taken the base of a woman away. No self-confidence, no worth whatsoever. So a guy may now come in after punching the woman, say, but you know I love you. You've given her, you love her. Oh, you've given her something. Because all this while you've been indifferent, you've not given her anything anyway. So that little bit, even though she's hurting and knows that what was done was wrong, but he loves her. Okay, I'll take that, he's better than nothing.
Okay.
And then it happens again and again, until you start believing that actually whatever you did was your fault.
Okay.
So he's justified to be doing what he's doing. It's unfortunate that many of us don't really know who we are. It's unfortunate, and it's some burden that the Lord has laid on me that women, when we get to know who we are from the Creator's eyes, because God made the whole world, finished, gave Adam charge. Okay, you name all the animals I made. Adam has finished naming, hoping to find someone that suits him amongst a lot. Finishes, there's nobody that suits him. God then says, it's not good for man to be alone.
Yes.
He says, okay, I need to make somebody, a companion for him. Before then, if we read, I can't remember where, he made male and female. He created man, male and female.
Yes.
He made them, man was one. So male, female was in one body.
Yeah.
He made that man to fall asleep, took part of it, so now separated that one body into two. Like I said before, one coin but two sides. So you now have got male and female only separated because of the job he gave to us to do.
Yeah.
Females, you bear fruit, you propagate. Males, you do what you need to do. But the thing is, he said both Adam and Eve to dominate.
Yeah.
He never said man was to
to
dominate. He said both of them to dominate, populate, fill the world, earth. That's our job. And then he makes, this is where marriage came in. And then he compares, again in his word, compares marriage to the church and Christ. So where does domestic abuse come in? Jesus does not abuse the church.
Okay.
Now, anyone now telling me, well, further down in Matthew 5, is it 32, he said that Jesus is saying no divorce. But in the beginning, in Genesis, God is saying, this is what I want for marriage. He wants unity. And this is what he's saying, don't put asunder. Do not put asunder my unity.
Okay.
Not man's unity, my unity. So we say, and then Jesus says again, you go along, he says, even if you look with your eyes and lust after a girl, you've committed adultery. Because everyone says, well, the only grounds for divorce is adultery.
Yeah.
Adultery, what is adultery? We talk about adulterated goods. If you have a can of Coke and they've put something else that shouldn't be in that can of Coke, it's adulterated. Now, in a marriage, where God's definition of marriage is unity, it is building up, is working together. This is what God doesn't want to put us under. Now, if you now adulterate that by getting abuse, physical
mental,
whatever
sure.
it is. You've adulterated that environment already. It's not the divorce paper that makes a marriage divorced.
Okay. But you know, sometimes they said God hates divorce. So based on this, a lot of women are suffering because we call ourselves Christians, though there are some people who are not Christians and they enjoy their marriages. But these days, a lot of women in our Christian society, we are suffering a lot of domestic abuse. Why is it so? Is it because we want to go to heaven, so we have to endure all the pain that we go through?
You see, the thing is,
It's really irritating.
Exactly.
Because one thing that I would like to say, I'm sorry to cut you off because my skin is actually itching.
I know.
They have not. If you believe in that statement you just made, you have not had the revelation of God's heart. Because if you understand the intentions that God has for us, you will know that He will not put you in a place where you're reduced from what He has called you to be, just so that you can hold up to the world's standard or label of being in a marriage, carrying, being a Mrs. or a Mister. That is not God's intention. And the reason why I'm getting frustrated is this fact that you said it before, we are making God a liar. Because if we can wake up and be honest with ourselves why we're remaining in a toxic relationship, and this is both men and women, why we're staying there, and remove God from it, because we're not staying in a toxic relationship because of God. We're not staying in the toxic relationship because of the children, because we're staying because we are afraid to leave, to start on our own, discovering and going through the process of knowing that, okay, I have lost a bit of myself. How can I now rebuild what I have lost? We are afraid of staying by ourselves because human as we are, if you don't train yourself to be sufficient in who He has called you to be, you will become so dependent on other people making you happy, other people validating your worth, being around people, because if you're busy, you're not going to hear the little chatters that goes inside your head that is telling you, you know what, you're absolutely nothing, there's nothing good about you. And these could be traumas that we have experienced and we haven't dealt with. So we need to stop saying that. We're not staying in this situation because of God or because of the children. We are staying because of our own fears.
Okay. Yes, you said because of our own fears. But let's give this scenario about Osinachi.
I was just going to bring her up, because following on from that again, people can say, oh, but she stayed for her kids. Now she's gone, the kids are still here.
Yes.
They're going to go through whatever they're going to go through in her absence. Oh, she stayed because, the ministry, but she's still gone. The ministry is still going to carry on. Now, I asked you this question earlier. In everything that's been discussed about this lady, Osinachi Nwachukwu, where was God ever glorified?
I don't think God was glorified.
No, He wasn't, because all that was talked about was domestic abuse. God was not glorified, and our purpose here is to glorify God. So whatever was being protected, now she's gone, is left wide open.
It's true.
So any woman using, oh, I'm staying because of my kids, or because I don't want this and I don't want that, when, God forbid, death comes through domestic abuse, everything else you're trying to protect, you would have left them wide open to the wolves of this world anyway.
And
So,
I think
and even within the marriage, the damage is being done. If there are children involved, the damage that is being done for a daughter to see her mother go through abuse is unbelievable. The impact that child will carry going forward, she'll probably perpetuate that in her own home. Let alone the sons. Is that what I'm supposed to do to my girlfriend, to my wife? Is that how I'm supposed to be, how my dad is being to my mom? Is that what a man is? Is this what marriage is about? My 18-year-old daughter says to me, there are many girls, her group, that want to be baby mamas but not wives. Now, why is that statement coming out of our black kids, black daughters these days? Because of what they're seeing in their homes. Nothing is making them want to be a wife. they don't mind being a mother, but they don't want to be a wife.
It's true. They prefer to be baby mothers.
Yes, they'll have their kids,
true.
but not the wife. So what is missing? What are we not passing on that girls would want to take?
Do you think the society is helping us going through this?
Of course not. Absolute culture.
Culture
is a massive perpetrator of what is
And the
going
church,
on.
yes.
But
Unfortunately, the church is
separately,
built on culture and tradition. Yes,
because you can't really separate the church from culture. You should do,
but
because
it's
the
not
church
being
is
so.
supposed to be a
Yes.
place of healing. However, it is very hard to see a church that you can separate, especially within our community, that you can say, okay, this is a church and this is culture, because culture is playing in our churches. And when we talk about domestic violence, I don't want anybody to mistake this conversation. This is not about encouraging you to leave your marriage.
No.
That's not what it is. But this conversation is important because both the perpetrator of the abuse and the victim, both people are victims in our culture. Because if you're a man and you grew up seeing your father mistreat your mother, and nobody had a conversation with you to correct
that is wrong.
the perception, to correct the vision that what you have just witnessed, you will grow up thinking that is the normal thing to do. Because within our culture, a woman is groomed from birth
to marry,
to be a wife, but nobody trains the boy. The boys within our culture, probably their first knowledge of sex never comes from their home. It either comes from pornography and from schools, but never the parents.
But the parents, we don't teach our children about sex. Even in Africa, it's a taboo for someone to talk about sex.
And this is the same thing that we're calling it. When we say taboo, stigma, we don't understand the meaning. Because if we're seeing sex as a taboo, but yet we condone a man stepping out of his wife to have an affair as a normal thing that a man should do, then that is a contradiction. It's a contradiction. Do you see what I'm trying to say? So we either need to stand for something or not stand for anything at all, but we can't play it both ways. The men who are being perpetrators of abuse 100% witness their fathers or their caretakers abuse their mothers. The women who became the perpetrator of abuse witnessed their mothers being abused and decided that they will not allow any man to treat them like that. Hence, they become a perpetrator. So where do we start? We have to start from the home. We have to start from the home. We need to start correcting the things that our children are seeing, because otherwise, guess what? They're only going to present exactly what you have given them.
And this is where conversations like this have to take place, especially in our community, because we know it's happening. Oh yeah, Sina, she's just another one. That same day, I'm sure more than 100 women in Africa died that day.
It's true. From domestic abuse.
Absolutely.
Yes. And people are still going through. But my question again is, why do you think? Because a woman will go to marry thinking that a man is going to love the woman.
A man should love his wife.
Yes, a man should love, but does men really love the women? Or sometimes they need helper? Because sometimes when a man gets to a stage, they say they need a partner. Why do they need a partner? Do they know why they need partners?
Of course not, because it's
sometimes they say, okay, we cannot cook, we need somebody to cook for us. So they are getting married based on the fact that they cannot cook for themselves.
But that might be the reason why the guy got in. Why did you go in? This is something we get. I say this, and you've heard me say it a number of times. Just because a guy says, I love you, you now step back and ask yourselves, do I love him? You can't, because just because a guy says he loves me doesn't mean I have to follow.
But don't you think so that also when a woman gets to a stage in our culture, in Africa, I won't say Ghana, Nigeria, in black community, when you get to a certain stage and you are not married, then they call you names.
But
So
that's
let
what,
So
them.
based on that, a lot of women are going into the marriage that they don't want to, but because they don't want people to talk about them, then they
need
have to enter.
Then that has to change. That's my question. That's my point.
And
that
how are
has
we going to change that?
by starting with
Yourself. You start with yourself.
Okay.
We need to be having the right conversation. We need to stop investing in Mary Kay and actually invest in building
Exactly.
our
No, and ourselves,
self-esteem. Because there's a lot of shades of makeup. There's a lot of caking.
Stop talking about makeup. We need that. I beg.
There's a lot of shades of makeup. But how many people within our community take time to purchase a ticket for a well-being training, a well-being seminar? Nobody does that, but you will spend hundreds and hundreds of pounds, naira, Ghana cedis, to go and even get your body changed. But you don't want to change the way that you think. You don't want to change the way that you see things. So if I don't change myself and I keep accepting the crumbs that you're
Somebody
giving
else
me,
will change you.
then guess what? This is going to continue. But the hope that I'm having for the generation after us is that they will learn how not to compromise. Because I hope we as parents are teaching their children what it is to be, to know yourself and stand in your,
I've heard so many stories that women get married, they go through domestic abuse, they come to their parents and complain about what their spouse are doing to them. Then they say, oh, that's how it is, you have to endure, go back. And many a times when they go back, the story that we hear is very miserable.
It's worse.
It's worse. So do our parents really help us?
Because
to
they're
go
coming
through
from
that?
they're coming from what they know. Which I don't want to say is not much, but they're coming from what they know. Well, my mom lived through it, my grandma lived through it, so why should yours be different? What's your problem? We've all survived it. So what is your problem?
So they take it as normal.
It's normal. But it's not normal because especially, I keep going back to Christians, especially Christians, if you know your God to be love, full stop, then all you should have is love.
How do we love?
How do we love?
How do we love? For instance, you are in a relationship, the man is beating you, or the woman is beating the man. So in that case, where is love? And when you say, okay, when they treat you like that, then they say, oh, when someone hurts you, you have to forgive. How do you forgive something that is, repetitive? It doesn't stop. So how do you love such a person? You're living with somebody and the person will hurt you. The next day you say, I'm sorry. Then another day it's going to happen again. And when you tell people, they say you have to endure. So where is the love? If you love somebody, do you have to beat the person up?
Of course not. There's so many things to the question so many angles to the question that you have just posed, because number one, before you go into any relationship, you need to have an understanding of your motivation, your reason for going into the relationship.
That's why I said that.
Because
statement.
if you're already settling or going into a relationship because you think you have come of age and you're worried about how you're going to be seen, guess what? Be prepared to take what you receive.
Exactly.
Because that's not the right mindset to go into a relationship. And when it comes to the parents, there's so much that a parent really can do for you. I tell people, your parents can keep feeding you until you hit the age of 15.
Yeah.
You now have the devices to eat more by associating yourself with people who know better than you do. We now live in a world of social media. There is so many things, good and bad, that you can learn. So we can't always blame the parents as well, because they only gave you what they know.
Yeah.
So what did you do? Did you stop growing because they stopped feeding you? No, you didn't stop eating. So you need to now allow yourself to learn and unlearn, because let's be honest, our parents are not God. They do not have all the answers. They can only give you as much as they know. when you now get to certain age, you now decide, it's a decision to unlearn the things that you know are not helpful, and to learn the things that you know that are helpful. And then if you're talking about love, God is love. And this is what I'm saying. It is important, because I hear people in situations that someone that I know quite well stayed in a toxic marriage because they understood the injury the partner had, and they felt that they wanted to help that man to heal.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, you cannot help somebody who does not recognize that they're already hurt.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, you can't tell somebody, oh, take this medication, if they don't recognize that they have a headache or anything like that.
Why are they taking it?
Exactly. And as the time went on, yes, they reached out to people in the church, they reached out to the in-laws. The in-laws response fed back in to even make things worse in terms of what the husband was doing to this lady. The church, because this is a really tricky situation, and you don't want to get your hands dirty. So for that reason, the church do not speak the truth. They skate around it. They will tell you, let's pray about it. You're not going to pray for a man to stop beating you. You have to take action. Yeah. They will tell you, we will fast about it. You can't fast for a man to beat. And even if God is speaking, you're not going to hear, because all you're experiencing at that particular time is fear. And this is what this lady was experiencing, fear. It was only when she had the strength to go against what everybody else is telling her and remove herself from the situation did she start healing.
But sometimes they say it's easier said than done. For instance, when Osinachi died, everyone is talking a different thing about it. Oh, she was stupid to stay in that marriage. If it was me, I won't stay there.
It's not stupid. It's not stupid.
Some people are saying that, oh, she should have, stayed there and pray, and God, the woman has prayed.
You think she didn't pray?
Yes. And a lot of people say, oh, the pastor was aware of what she was going through, but the pastor also came out and said she didn't know anything about it. So in that case, in Osinachi's case, who do we blame? The pastor? People are blaming the pastor. People are blaming the mother, the parent, that they should have gone in and, taken their daughter. But here's the case. They can't even detach their daughter from the marriage. It took them years for them to even see Osinachi. So who should we blame? Is she stupid that she stayed in the marriage till she died? Or
she's not stupid. She's not stupid at all.
Sorry, there's just one word. We use it a lot. Let's just take away that word blame and try and address the situation without pointing fingers. Because even as Elsie said, even the abuser is a victim. It's not excusing the abuser being abusive, but he or she has a story that needs to be addressed, that they need to be healed of, that they need to recognize and be healed of to start with. Now, you've mentioned pastor, you've mentioned church, you've mentioned family, you've mentioned the victim herself, who is to blame, so to speak. Sinachi herself, if she was not ready to move, she won't move. If she didn't recognize anything was happening on, it was acceptable at that point, she would not move.
Why?
Because she would have had
Is it because of the church? That because she sings at church? So if she move, or people hear that she has moved from the marriage, then
many things could have been good. Many things go through the mind of the one being abused.
Yeah.
You could say it's her children. You could say, oh, it's the church or ministry. You could say, oh, it's the disgrace. You could say, what will people say about me leaving the marriage? So many things would have gone through. Oh, it's bearable. It doesn't really mean it. There's so many excuses one can give themselves when they're in a negative situation. But until that person wants to deal with that situation, nothing can be done.
And the thing that we need to understand as well, before any abuse gets to hitting, the perpetrator of the abuse have broken you mentally.